Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another version of the MKE Downtown Exchange, Madison, Milwaukee Downtown Exchange. This is a quarterly series we brought to you all year, trying to create better connections between the two biggest downtowns in the state. We are so excited to have our last one of the year on big ideas. This year has been an amazing year for this new project between our friends at Milwaukee Downtown, the bid right in the center of the city, and us here at DMI, Downtown Madison Inc. I'm the president of Downtown Madison Inc., Jason Ilstrup, and we're so excited for today's presentation. This has been a years-long series of great events between the two cities. We've talked about the future of transportation. We've talked about the state of our downtowns, and we've talked about the future of commercial real estate. With so much changing with the pandemic in our downtowns, it's just great to bring the two together. So today, we've got an amazing group of speakers who are going to talk about big ideas that are already happening downtown and some big ideas we hope to happen in the future. But before we begin today, I want to kick it to my colleague, my good friend, and my mentor, the president and CEO of Milwaukee Downtown, Beth Wyrick. Beth, good morning. How are you today?
Good morning, Jason. Thanks so much. Thanks for your leadership on this and all the work that you're doing. And it's really great to have so many people joining us from across this wonderful state of Wisconsin. I just wanted to comment today. I love the idea that you and Matt came up with on the big ideas, the big and the bold. I think it's really phenomenal. I think every single one of us on this call, the panelists as well as those who are joining us today, you're always approached with people who have really great big ideas. So I don't think that there's a shortage of big ideas, but I think there is a shortage of, not on this panel today by any means, are people who are willing to implement those big ideas. And I think oftentimes we have to kind of blow things up or break things to be able to start over, to shake the old ways of thinking and the old paradigm. So I'm really excited to hear from the panelists today. I'm happy we can share a bold and big idea that we're engaged in, but just wanted to say thanks, not only for the ideas, but for the implementers of those big ideas. And I'm going to toss it back to you, Jason.
Beth, you are the best. And the chat is great. People are loving your glasses. They're loving your pennant. And not to be outshone by our friends in Milwaukee, we love our pennants too. Go Madtown, Bucks and Six, Bear Claws. You got everything behind you. I've got some Forward Madison. So we're showing our love for the two cities today. All right. We wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for our partners in Milwaukee Downtown, but also our sponsors. We've got Reinhardt and Bolt, who have been so supportive of this new effort, which we kicked off at the beginning of this year. And don't worry, it's coming back next year. We've already got our first one planned to talk about workforce in our downtowns in January. So we wouldn't be here, though, without our friend Nathan Wadier, shareholder, and yes, my boss. He is the chair of the DMI Board of Directors. This is his idea to run this event, so we can take no credit. So all accolades go to Nathan. If you love it, if you don't love it, you can also send your notes to Nathan. Nathan, thank you. How are you this morning?
I'm great. Thank you, Jason. Just want to say a few short words on behalf of Reinhardt. Reinhardt is a full-service business law firm. We have about 7 offices. I'll probably forget all of the locations, but I know our primary locations are in Madison and Milwaukee. We're big supporters of the downtowns in both locations. And we're just really excited to be a part of the conversation that's been happening with the Madison-Milwaukee Downtown Exchange. The panel that we have today are really leaders in bringing together those two communities in these conversations. The pandemic has given us this opportunity to bring the two communities closer, and Reinhardt's just been excited to be a part of that, and we hope those conversations keep going. So thank you.
Thank you, Nathan, for all the support. Next up, we have Jeff Neeson, the group president of central operations for Bolt, who's been a great partner in this and has really helped dramatically with the next one on workforce in January. So Jeff, how are you this morning?
Good morning. Thank you, Jason. It's great to be here. Bolt is a Wisconsin-based general contractor, construction manager. More importantly, we've grown particular expertise and, more importantly, relationships in both the Madison and Milwaukee markets. We're delighted to be here sponsoring this event and really look forward to the discussion about these bold ideas. If you need some help in implementing bold ideas, we would love to help. Thank you.
You all certainly build bold projects throughout the entire state and in Madison and Milwaukee. So we're very thankful to Reinhardt and bold this morning. All right, we're going to get right into it today to talk about bold ideas. As you all know, downtowns across the country are at an inflection point. Beth mentioned this earlier. So much has changed over the last 18 to 20 months. And what direction are we going to head in the future? There's multiple different directions we can take. Right now, there are several big idea projects that are happening in downtowns. In our 2 downtowns, we want to highlight several of those projects. We've got a project about a plan, how to build a different public-private partnership plan that our friends at Milwaukee Downtown are going to discuss. How do we build different buildings? We've got Tim Gochman from Land Enterprises here to talk about an amazing timber frame building going up right now in Milwaukee. Talk about a big idea. Here in Madison, our big idea is about retail and how we diversify the downtown with our pop-up shop program, the Cultural Collective. It's an amazing group, public-private partnership, trying to get things done. And last but not least, well, maybe least, when you meet the actual speaker to talk about it, we're going to talk about how we bring the 2 communities together with Ian Abston of the Hone Group. You'll see what I'm talking about when he gets on. He is a fantastic speaker and really doing things to create connections and community between the 2 downtowns. So we're going to start with the big ideas today, give presentations on a couple of big ideas, open it up to the panel on other big ideas we're hearing, and then we'll have time for question and answer at the end. So if you have questions, please send them in through the chat or through the Q&A function, and I can ask those questions for you. But we're going to start today with our friends from the Milwaukee Downtown BID, Beth Weirick, who we just heard from, the president and CEO, and Economic Development Director Matt Dorner are going to talk about their plan that they're working a public-private partnership on how to really rebuild downtown Milwaukee and make it into a vibrant place for everyone. So Matt, Beth, you're all up.
Thanks, Jason. Happy to be here. Good morning, everybody. I'll go ahead and just kick it off and talk about exactly, probably on an overarching scale. It's a really great time to be part of this panel and really talking about our endeavor that we embarked on with the city of Milwaukee to update the downtown plan and really paint a big, bold vision for downtown Milwaukee moving forward. So if I can go ahead and share my screen really quickly, I'm going to do that and run through just a quick couple slides, giving a little bit of a background, and then also just talking about how folks on the call and throughout our respective communities can get involved with this update to the downtown planning process. And Beth, please feel free to hop in, add anything as we're going as well. So like I mentioned, all of our respective municipalities, Madison, Milwaukee, anybody that might be joining, each of your respective communities has a downtown comprehensive plan. We at Milwaukee Downtown started to think about our relative strategic plan. And as we started moving forward and talking with our colleagues at the city of Milwaukee, we really actually started to expand the conversation and examine, you know what, our 2010 plan, a lot's been accomplished. There's a lot of new challenges. There's a lot of new opportunities coming out of exactly where we are right now. Maybe it's time to take a bigger, bolder vision and look at a full-on update to the downtown plan. Real quickly, I'm showing the planning boundary. The city of Milwaukee is divided up into 13 different planning areas. Each of those, the 96 square miles that make up our city. Each neighborhood has its unique characteristics, and downtown is one of those as well. So you see here, essentially from I-43 to Lake Michigan on the east and west. Our northern boundaries generally Walnut, the Schlitz Park area on the north, and generally I-794 where we butt up against the historic third wards, generally that planning area. As I mentioned, it's time to really update our downtown plan and paint that bigger, bold vision moving forward. We're making recommendations ultimately on housing, economic development, streets, public spaces. Are there zoning, land use, and policy updates? And what are those big, bold visions that we should really be thinking about as we look at a downtown for the future? Just real quickly, we're not starting from scratch. This is really an update. There's been several downtown plans, larger planning efforts, and really this is a strategic kicking off point to looking at those previous planning efforts, and now with the new lenses of what really the realities of today, putting those lenses on and moving forward. Real quickly here, a little bit of background on the 2010 plan. Ultimately was divided around 4 themes, as you can see here, talking about creating a sense of place, a connected downtown, and ultimately, and similarly, the downtown was sort of broken up into these 8 unique districts, each of which had a catalytic project recommendation that in a lot of respects, we've seen a lot of movement in the last decade for some of these catalytic projects. And at the same time, some of them that you might see on the screen here, where there's been less movement. And really, this is going to be an opportunity for us to examine what those challenges are and what those opportunities are moving forward. But things like the downtown streetcar, the first leg of that has been implemented. There's been an incredible amount of movement around the Wisconsin Avenue, for example. A lot of development at the Lakefront Gateway with new development projects. There's still some work to do on the public space side. And the Broadway connection, for example, is a space that our organizations really played a role in helping move forward, especially the public realm. So again, we'll be examining these catalytic projects and bringing forth recommendations that still make sense moving forward. Early in the process, there's certain themes around walkability, vibrancy, certainly diversity, inclusivity, and resiliency on all fronts are some of the themes that we think are going to play a big role in moving the planning process forward. And now I'm going to really kind of just talk about how we can, everybody can get engaged with the process. Ultimately, we just onloaded our consultants to the project. And for the very first time, the city's actually consciously hired a separate community engagement and equity consultant. P3 Development Group is on the team. And then we're also really thrilled to have our urban design consultants, TKWA, H&TB, American Design, and then some engineering support through R.A. Smith. So that's the team that's really complementing the city and the business improvement district team as well. Where we are right now, so literally there's an opportunity to register for our first public meeting, which is tomorrow evening at 6:30. And we're really kicking off this public process that's going to be over the course of the next year, fielding as much public input around big and bold ideas for the next 2 decades on how we reshape downtown. And that process is literally kicking off tomorrow. So like I mentioned, to engage, simply go to connectingmke.com. Right there, you can register for tomorrow's virtual meeting. We already have a couple hundred participants. It's going to be highly interactive with an opportunity to really weigh in on a variety of questions. And there's a variety of other engagement tools that we have that are also that you can find at connectingmke.com. And I'll drop that link into the chat box shortly after I sort of conclude. But what you can see here is just a quick snapshot that I took of some of those online engagement tools. Not only will we have the virtual public meeting tomorrow, but you can see there's literally an interactive map where you can go to it and drop pinpoints on the map, and you can even see some of those pinpoints are my big idea. Drop in your big idea. People are talking about removing freeway off ramps to open up development opportunities. You can also ask questions. You can place comments about what you like. There's also an opportunity to add photos. If you're walking around downtown Milwaukee and you love a crosswalk, you love some public art that you've seen, or if you see an issue that needs to be fixed, it's highly interactive where you can go and engage online, mobilely, and really drop your comments right in there on the live map. We already have over 500 interactions. So as I mentioned, this is sort of the final slide. Stay engaged, get connected. We're looking to paint a big, bold vision for downtown. The plan update is coined Connecting MKE 2040, and we look forward to your participation. Like I said, I'll drop in the link into the chat box, and please join us tomorrow evening. Beth, if I left anything out, please hop in and add.
Just quickly, because I'm really excited to hear from the other panelists, but thanks so much, Matt. We've been really excited. What a great opportunity for us as we were presented with the challenges of coming out, well, hopefully post-pandemic. But again, when we reference this in relationship to bold ideas, I think the bookends of this project are really interesting in the way in which we've launched it, doing it differently than I think any other approach that we've ever had from an area plan process before. And that is really our commitment to equity and community engagement at the outset. This contract or this project having 2 separate contracts, as Matt had mentioned, one very specifically focused on that community equity and inclusivity. We've created a community council representing greater downtown areas, and that group of people has been phenomenal. They are ambassadors for this plan. Our objective is to have as much wide engagement as we can, and we're already seeing that represented in the registrations for our first public meeting tomorrow, and we're going to continue this kind of work with great intention. But then that back bookend is we're being very intentional as we go through this process. Our end product is going to be not only a plan, but very specific deliverables with work plans attached to that, which then many of our organizations and entities will take that body of work that has been done by the entire community and implement that, for example, into Bid 21 strategic plan as we move forward and identify resources to be certain, again, about implementation of those bold ideas. So thanks so much for this opportunity. Please, if you can, connectingmke.com, get involved. If you can't be at the meeting this week, please spread the word, follow us on social, please share it. We want as much engagement as we can get from the community so that this is everybody's plan. So thanks so much.
I absolutely love this, Beth and Matt, how you're so intentional about bringing the entire community into making sure it's everybody's downtown, right? A vibrant, equitable, welcoming place for everyone. And this is a bold plan to make it happen. So it's fantastic. I will be there tomorrow night just to make sure that my lifelong goal of getting a Cop's custard into downtown Milwaukee becomes a reality. Oh, it's so tasty, so tasty. All right, speaking of tasty, that is the weirdest sequitur I've ever had. Next up, we have a tasty project. I'll just continue to run with it. An amazing big idea of how we think differently about building buildings and the ascent in downtown Milwaukee. We've got Tim Gochman, the managing director of New Land Enterprises, here to talk about this incredible project. Those of you in Milwaukee are watching it happen. Those in Madison, we don't see it as much, but Tim, please tell us about this huge, big idea that you're building right now.
All right, everybody can hear me? Awesome.
We can hear you and see the photos. Great.
Awesome. All right. So, tasty project. I love that. I love that. I'm going to use that from now on. It's our tastiest project yet. So I'm gonna rip through this presentation, which is typically 15 minutes, and shave it down by about half, and try to address the questions that are most often asked about this development. But what's for those of you that are not familiar with it, we are hoping that this is going to help transform the way that buildings are designed and built. No small feat. A little bit of background on New Land. We're Milwaukee based. We've been around for a while, and there's a strong history of innovation. So we often get asked the question of how did we get to the point where we wanted to build the tallest mass timber building in the world? It takes a little bit of background. And so some of the projects we've done in Milwaukee aren't just apartment buildings. We've done public spaces like Black Cat Alley, which has been transformed to now look like this. We've transformed entire city blocks, including the conversion of a street to a public plaza. So that's with that corner, right? Big change as to how you get into Bayview. And all of those experiences had brought us to this particular project. And so we had owned the site for quite a while, about a decade. And we're working on multiple development concepts for it. And the reason why we decided to pursue mass timber was because it looks like nothing else. And at the same time, it looks like something very familiar in Milwaukee. It looks like the old exposed brick, heavy timber buildings that we have and that frankly other older port cities have. So in 2017, I saw an article. It was an 80-story building built out of wood with exposed infrastructure inside. It captured in my imagination. A year later, we decided to pursue our own. The 80-story was a hypothetical, was never built. And so that's really what it started with. It started with aesthetics. But as we got into it and as we went on a 2.5-year R&D journey, getting a grant from the US Forest Service to do 14 fire tests because they had never been done in the United States before, and so on, we discovered that not is it just a building that looks better and people feel better in, but it's also a building technology that is faster, more precise, lighter, takes a smaller workforce, and of course, offers incredible environmental benefits over the traditional concrete and steel. The aesthetics, you can kind of see we're marrying the warmth of those aforementioned heavy timber buildings with the modern conveniences and technologies of updated glass systems and HVAC and efficient floor plates and elevators in the right places and so on. So that's, this is what everybody relates to, is the aesthetics. But as I mentioned, really we see mass timber as technology doing for the building industry what Tesla did for the EV world. For those excited about mass timber, you should be, but people also need to understand how incredibly challenging it is, namely because there's so many unanswered questions in mass timber. The technology hasn't been around that long in the United States, and so all of the answers that we take for granted that we have with concrete and steel have to be explored in mass timber. And so it's not whether it can be done, it's whether it can be done efficiently. And so we had to build literally a world-class team in order to do a project like Ascent. I think that if this path were not followed, this project would just be a hypothetical. And then this is the timeline, and the municipality and the people working in the municipality are a very important component. We were very lucky to be in Milwaukee and to have people both in the fire department and the Department of Neighborhood Services, which issues the permit, who were familiar with mass timber or were willing to learn about it and understand the science behind it. Quick slide on how the building is put together. It is a mass timber hybrid, so it does have a concrete podium. The kind of shafts that you see going below, those are piles, because the building weighs 60% less than concrete. About half the piles of a building its size in concrete were required. So that's actually a benefit for the neighbors and for the neighborhood, less time banging piles and less noise. And then these are the fire tests that we went through in order to prove that the mass timber columns and beams would be able to perform equivalent or better than their counterparts in the prescriptive fire tests. And then one of the most unique things about building mass timber is how it's built. And that is what you're seeing here is a digital twin. So the building was completely designed digitally down to the light switches, which is very different from a typical construction process. Some people call this BIM, some people call this VDC, but all of the mass timber components are already pre-routed in Austria for all of your mechanical connections, your plumbing, your electrical, your fire, etc. And so it takes an incredible degree of coordination up front, getting the general contractor and all of the subcontractors together, having them all submit their separate drawings, assembling them all into one model to make sure there are no conflicts in the routing. The feedback we've gotten is that this is the most precise building in the world to date. So key points for if you are doing a lot of offsite fabrication and you're doing that in a controlled environment, and on-site you're just assembling the building instead of actually building it, and you're doing a smaller workforce and you're doing a shorter period of time, that is by definition more safe. One of the anecdotes that we have from C.D. Smith, one of our general contractors, is that one of their guys, his wife doesn't believe that he goes to work anymore because he comes home and he's not tired and not splattered in concrete. And she's like, "Where do you go every day?" And he's like, "I'm working on a mass timber building." And she's like, "Yeah, I'm sure you are." But truly, right, jokes aside, what an incredible difference in the quality of work environment for the people on the job site. And then the economics, people ask a lot, is it better rents? That's not the way that we model it. Our goal is to deliver a better product for the same cost, which is a challenge in Milwaukee. Concrete is relatively speaking cheap, and we believe that we're able to do it. And then the most exciting thing about mass timber for me is that it's not just a niche movement. And so all of the names that you see mentioned below have fully embraced mass timber, which is telling you that a bunch of different people in a bunch of different industries have said, yes, this makes sense. This is the way of the future. And that to me is really, really exciting. And so here are some construction updates. These are some of the aesthetics you can see, right? So all of those holes, those were routed in Austria. You can see there's a seam right down the middle. The tolerance on those seams is 1/16 of an inch. That's how tight everything is on the construction site. It's pretty incredible. That's a progress photo. We're actually setting the floor on 25. So we are on the top floor. We will top out in about 10 days, and that will be a world record. There we go. That's an updated shot. And on that, I will wrap it up. How did I do on time?
Yeah, Tim, that was great. I mean, what an incredible project. I mean, game changer to top out at a world record here, right in our region is fantastic. Let's talk about a big idea, bold, and we'll say tasty. So well done. We'll come back to you for questions because I know people will have questions. Next up, you're going to hear from me on a project here in Madison about a big idea we got from the events of 2020, right? So much happened in 2020 in downtowns, and including in downtown Madison, whether or not it was the pandemic or the truly important social justice movement that happened here in downtown Madison. We learned a tremendous amount about how and what we need to do downtown. From this, we're at this moment of inflection. We created a group called the Downtown Group, which was a truly diverse group of stakeholders that trying to get projects done. And their whole mantra was to create a vibrant, equitable, and welcoming downtown for everyone. And one of the things they noticed was that on State Street, we wanted to create a more diverse business grouping in a place where, as the great Angela Russell, who many of you know in Madison, says, we are trying to create soulful experiences downtown for every soul in our city. And how do we get that done? How does that actually happen to make downtown more diverse? It can be through entertainment, like things like the Mad Lit Project. It could be through art with the amazing Belle Phillips statue that's going to be erected at the Capitol. The first Black woman in America to be in a statue form at our Capitol is amazing. All of these projects have to happen, but one that we wanted to get behind that really looked at how do we deal with making the downtown more diverse, but also ensuring that we had some more vacant storefronts after the pandemic. How do we bring those to light? So the group got together, and thanks to JD McCormick, they had a couple of buildings on the 400 block of State Street, so right next to Lisa Link Peace Park. For all of you ice cream fans, that is going to be next to the chocolate shop, as I only seem to be talking about ice cream right now. Of course, I just got rid of my presentation. I hit the wrong button here, so 1 second, I'm sorry. We had this willing participant, JD McCormick, who wanted to bring the project in, and they wanted to say, look, we've got this space, we're going to redevelop the space, and we are going to try to do something different. And we want to give this space to our friends here in the city to try to make something bold happen. So this is how the public-private partnership started. It started through the Downtown Group, where all of these different agencies were meeting: the City of Madison, DMI, Madison Central Business Improvement District, the Black, Latino, and Hmong Chambers, the Downtown Group, and JD McCormick all came together to say, let's take these storefronts and create something different. So we created a pop-up shop called the Culture Collectives. And the Culture Collectives are truly a unique public-private partnership where JD McCormick was able to give us a great deal on the rent on these two locations. The City of Madison, through the Small Business Equity Recovery Fund, backstopped this and helped and is paying for the rent for 2 years. And then they brought in the Hmong, Black, and Latino chambers to, amongst their members, find the vendors for the store. So every one of the participants in the cultural collectives are members of the Black, Latino, and Hmong chamber. So it hugely increases the diversity and inclusiveness on the street, which we consider to be Main Street for the state of Wisconsin. No offense to our friends in Milwaukee, but when you're connecting the state capitol to the state university, we think it's Wisconsin's Main Street. And to add the cultural collectives and these amazing stores with unique offerings that you wouldn't normally see here in Madison on State Street is such an amazing program. And when you tie it with the Market Ready program as part of our public market, which is going to launch in a year or two on the edge of downtown on the eastern side, they were able to really help these vendors with product, with merchandising, with POS systems, with legal help, and all of these things to make these businesses succeed. And we've seen vendors from all throughout the world bring their projects here. And this has been open now for about 2 months. So please do come and see this store. It is adding such vibrancy to State Street, bringing businesses that wouldn't normally be there. So this is a big, bold idea that we want to bring forward to not just Madison, but to many other cities. We're working with MIG, our strategic planning consultants from Berkeley, California. They came in and saw this and said, whoa, this really is different. We hope that this model to create a more diverse and equitable downtown is usable in other downtowns like Milwaukee, but also throughout our own city here in Madison. So that's a quick update on the cultural collectives, a big idea and how we change the face of retail and how we change the face of bringing different groups together to work directly on projects here in Madison. Wow, since I'm paying double duty as both MC and presenter on that, we're now up to our great friend, Ian Abston, also known as Santa Claus here today. You'll see here in a second. He is the founder and creator and executive director of the Hone Group, a group trying to create connections between young leaders in Madison and Milwaukee, truly trying to create these connections so that they last for generations to come between our two downtowns and our two regions. I have rarely, if ever, met a better connector and visionary than Ian Abston. That is the greatest compliment I will ever pay you. So take that and bring it to the bank, my friend.
I'm glad you recorded.
Yeah, we are recording this. So yes, it'll be in perpetuity forever. So Ian, please tell us about the Hone Group and why this is so important to bring these two cities together and why this is a big and bold idea.
Well, thanks, Jason. And I think the panel here is a really good idea of why the cities need to work together. So the Hone Group started off about 6 years ago in Milwaukee, and our foundation was based on change happens at the speed of trust. So as everyone is involved in their communities, getting things done, it's all done through relationships, and we intend to build those relationships. And we had started this project in Milwaukee with private dinners and getting people together, and everybody signs a confidentiality agreement, and several people on the panel and our friends in the audience as well are also members. And we were at an executive's home one day, and he said, you're trying to build the future of Milwaukee through betting on leaders and building relationships is a great idea. You have to do this in Madison too if you want to see it succeed. He said the reason is Milwaukee and Madison are the front door to the state. I agree with you. State Street, a lot of people come in, and that is kind of the street of Wisconsin. And Wisconsin is going to go in the direction that Milwaukee and Madison grow. And we hadn't seen a lot of collaboration between the two communities. And we thought that is a hell of an opportunity. And we got on a bus, went to Madison, and we met this very excited, positive gentleman by the name of Jason Ilstrup, who greeted everyone with hugs and open arms. And we realized, man, there's great talent here. There are incredible people in Madison. And we had then founded the Madison's Hone Group as well. I'm in a Christmas hat. We're having our Christmas party tonight. Have to be festive. Our programming looks a little bit different. Most of the time there's a lot of discussions and hearing from speakers, and we like to look at the Hone Group as our members are the talent. They are the reason you show up. Oh, here we go. Thank you, sir. So that's a little bit about the group. And if you want to go to slinging number 2, we, instead of renting tables at restaurants, that's us getting on ducks. We then went to Bradford Beach, had a long dinner table. If you look at the next slide, that is Beth Weirick skydiving. Yeah, she went skydiving and she didn't mention it. So I had to quick screen grab this grainy ass photo, send it to myself, and throw it on here. And if my presentation ended, it would be on a high note. Beth, happy birthday. Congrats on the skydive. There's several other pictures. She's a great Instagram follow. We went to Madison. Here was one of the first times, and actually getting together, going to Madison and seeing people in person, putting palms together, shaking hands, building relationships. The state, I am a firm believer that we will be a stronger state because of the relationships built in the offshoots of this group. We're not tracking all of them, but you're seeing here, these are the private dinners. 8 people, a chef, sitting down. They're scheduled for 2 hours. Sometimes they go 6. And sitting down, breaking bread, and having discussions with people. Not only is it creating ideas, but it's also solving problems before they happen, because these people are leaders and the relationships are formed today. And we're excited about that. And this was the Milwaukee group and the Madison group posing at the incredible field, which is now being renovated by 2 people in the home group. So relationships are slowly growing. And of course, get on a bus and go to the other metro, Chicago. I think this is another great example. There's a lot of big companies doing businesses in both Milwaukee and Madison. And I think Chicago's up next. We've done some programming here in the field. What's your field, Jason? I forget what the name of this is in Madison.
Warner Park.
Perfect.
Home of the Mallards.
Madison Mallards, yep. We've done some kayaking. Of course, you mentioned Angela Russell. She is here with us. She gives incredible hugs, as always. And some of the Christmas party that we just had last week. And I'll end on this slide, Jason, before we go any further. Oh no, the next one. Yep, of the bridge. And an offshoot of what came of the home group is the lighting of the Hone Bridge. So this doesn't happen without the execution, the vision, the volunteer time and effort of a ton of the Milwaukee and Madison people that came together and said, this is a weird idea, but I get it. I get the big picture. And I'll end on this. A lot of today's executives have to make decisions to make next quarter profitable. This is the next generation of leaders we're betting on. So we're not looking at the next quarter, we're looking at the next generation. And I think that's where our mindset is shifting. So because of that, because of Jason, because of several other people on the panel, we're able to connect some of the best and the brightest in both cities. And we're looking forward to future collaborations to come and the big, incredible ideas.
Ian, I love it. There is no bigger thinker than what you're doing. You're building these relationships that will last a long time, and I think absolutely help the 2 biggest metros in the city become even more connected, which is powerful and important for the entire state and the entire region. So kudos to you, Ian. Kudos to you, Beth and Matt, for the amazing planning work. Kudos to us in Madison, I guess. I don't know. The humble Midwesterner can't say that, but yes.
Kudos to you, Jason. Kudos to you on throwing this together.
Yeah, the Collector Project, and for Tim Gockman, for thinking big. All right. So we heard about some projects. We've got time for questions from the audience. If you've got questions, I see Tim has already answered a question or 2 in the chat. Send them through on the chat or in the Q&A function, and I will ask those. But I want to get a question to all the panelists first. We've seen these big projects. What other big projects are happening right now in your cities that may not have been mentioned here that are big and bold and different than what we've seen in the past? Beth or Matt, Tim, anyone? I'll start with you all. Nathan, if you want to join us, Jeff too, as well, you're still on. If you all have big projects that are in the works that are really potentially changing our downtown.
I'm happy to start. When I think of big projects, I like to think of the 40,000 foot view, maybe from jumping out of a plane. Thanks for that shout out, Ian. But I look at projects where just even, let's not lose sight of the really important things that are sometimes the small things, like our quality of life, of creating and activating spaces. I think that is really important for us. It might not be a huge, enormous construction project like Tim's, which is fabulous, but I do think where our communities are really making great strides is activation and creating those third spaces for everybody from our communities to come and join together, connect together, congregating at the Hone for some of those beautiful, fabulous light shows, socializing and connecting in spaces where it's free and affordable, where ideas and energy can come together. I think that's really critical. I think, you see this in the theme of our update on our downtown area plan. It's really about connecting MKE, connecting Milwaukee, that I-94 corridor. I think those are our big, brilliant ideas of really focusing on sustainability, connection to community, and really thinking at a much higher level. So generally speaking, you can go to our website, milwaukeedowntown.com, go to our comprehensive development map, lots of projects and programs on there. But again, that big idea to me is the fact that we're bringing human beings together in these spaces and sharing energy. And it's more important now than ever. We know what isolation has done to all of our communities. And so I think that connecting of people and spaces is key for both of our communities.
Yeah, and I actually would double exactly what Beth said and talk about what Beth mentioned earlier, the intentionality of trying to make downtown places for everyone, right? We've heard very clearly that it has not always been that way. It has not been equitable, and not been diverse, not been inclusive. We have to do projects that make sure we're intentional that happens. And one area I think In Madison, another project that we're thinking big on is our access to the water. Madison is a city of lakes. We're just blessed with this isthmus, right? That cuts right through. And the thinnest point in downtown, it's about a mile of land. It's just this amazing opportunity to connect to the water. Yet it's really hard, even for me as the president of a downtown management association, to figure out how to get to access to the water. And everyone in our community wants to access the water. Some of the most diverse spaces downtown are on the current water now. Another fact, 50% of all lakeshore in the cities in this area is owned by some government entity, yet we don't have access. And so we are looking big with the city, with several other partners. How do we connect the east side through Machinery Row with the Lake Monona waterfront, all the way down the Monona Terrace, the John Nolan Causeway, up into Olin Park, and then South Madison and the Alliant Energy Center, and the amazing things going on there with Dr. Jack Daniels and the Goodman South Campus of Madison College, the Black Business Hub and Dr. Ruben Anthony, Dr. Alex G. and the Center for Black Excellence, the Alliant Energy Center work, this amazing 164-acre campus, the Olin Park. How do we do all of this to create better access to water for our entire community and create what I would argue is one of the best vistas to come into a city in I'll say the world, maybe that's a bit much, but when you come in on John Nolan, how can we really pedestrianize that, create spaces for people to come together, to fish, to listen to music, to eat, enjoy food? We need to use our water better. And Milwaukee is a city that we can absolutely replicate that happening. So that's another big project. Tim, Ian, Matt, any other bold projects in our cities?
I'll jump in on one. I think just I'll say collaboration, the open sourcing of the way we are doing projects in itself is a big idea. I'm watching Kevin right now, the project as he just threw in the chat here. This is community supported planning. This used to be done in a private room with, cigars and drinks, done by people that are driving into the city planning out. And now you guys are saying, be interactive, tell us what you exactly want. And I'm watching Gachman on Twitter harass the hell out of the city on Twitter account saying, we need walkability. Madison, you guys are kicking ass. You guys are growing in population because you have a very pedestrian friendly city. And we've got some easy layups in downtown Milwaukee that we could have, should have done during the pandemic when all these places were shut down, when we should be shutting down streets and making them pedestrian only and get the cars off of the streets. And I think Tim and a lot of people in this call are big promoting, start designing cities for people and not for cars. And I think thanks to collaboration and open sourcing of ideas, these are getting to the top.
Yeah, I could echo what you want to sort of say as well. A lot of these projects, the Hone Bridge doesn't get lit up. The Cultural Collective, when Jason listed off the number of partners, I think a big, bold idea is how do we do these projects moving forward? It's about the private sector, the philanthropic dollars, the business improvement districts, the public sector all coming together to figure out, we know on the governmental side of things, budgets are tighter than ever, right? So how do you find opportunities to leverage all of the partners and bringing those that maybe historically operated in silos together to make big projects happen? Across the street from us, the Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra, $120 million philanthropic lift to a beautiful, unbelievable reinvention of a space that's been vacant since 1996, I believe. So you look at a lot of these projects, even, we're endeavoring to build downtown its first public dog park. This is ultimately a huge partnership between Federal Highways, DOT, the Business Improvement District, the City of Milwaukee, Milwaukee County, and ultimately it's going to take the private sector to help make this project happen as well. So I think as we move forward, I think a lot of that will be discussed as part of the downtown planning process. We've had success in that, but I think almost formalizing these informal relationships that come together to get things done, to light the other side of the Ian's Bridge, all of these things, I mean, it's going to take incredible partnerships, and it's going to be people from historically been across the table coming together.
And I'll finish by saying that the projects in Milwaukee that I'm most excited for are the ones that haven't happened yet. There is so much potential to activate downtown, building on what Ian was saying about better pedestrianized built environments. Jason, you said you can learn from Milwaukee about how we utilize our water, but I'm much more critical, and I would say that Milwaukee does a terrible job of using its water. Our river walks are not activated. They're a glorified sidewalk without any activities on it. Same thing with the lakefront. It's a gigantic stretch of lawn. And so when people celebrate Milwaukee's amazing county park system, I think we have a county lawn system because we don't have a lot of activated spaces. Now, it doesn't mean that they're right, but it also tells you that there's a ton of potential. And so whether it's Cathedral Square or the lakefront or the Riverwalk, we have good cities, but we have the ability to make them great. And whether it's the expansion of the hop or the activization of these spaces, there's so much more that we can do.
Tim, I love that idea of we've got good cities that we want to make great. And I think we can do that together. And I'm hoping that these sort of panel discussions help make that happen. One quick question, and I think a follow-up to a question that we had from the chat from Kevin Hardman is, we've really seen how we can use public space differently, right? Tim, you brought up how we need to have more walkable cities. We have a streetery program here that has, sort of transformed how we use public space. Obviously, we're in the middle of a conversation about what we do with State Street and making it a pedestrian mall and really creating these amenities. So that kind of leads to the question that Kevin Hardman asks, what big projects have you all seen from other cities around the world that we think should happen here in Madison and Milwaukee? Beth, you want to start? You and I are part of the International Downtown Association, so we have a lot of connections with other cities and other cool projects. What would you like to see here from another city?
In Milwaukee or in Madison?
Well, both. You love Madison
okay.
too. So,
well,
yeah.
So for me, I mean, obviously, I always think about in so much of the work that we're doing right now and engaging people and getting feedback is I really dumb it down a little bit. And it's like, when you're traveling, what are the things that are most memorable for you? What is the thing that is visceral for you that really ties you emotionally to a place, right? And it's all the things that Tim was talking about. And I agree 100% is we've got to do a better job with activation. It's, it's more than if you build it, will they come? It is about that engagement. And to me, when I think about great cities, I think about pedestrian activation, I think about scale, I think about utilization of public transportation, I think about those wide open spaces where there is community coming together and where you're featuring your local arts and culture. I think in Milwaukee, we've been struggling. What is our living room? We've called Wisconsin Avenue our living room. We've called Cathedral Square our living room. We've called the Fiserv Forum our living room. But, I always feel like maybe those spaces are our dens, and so, and do you have to have a living room is another question for me. I mean, it could be a variety of dens. I don't know. But philosophically, I think it does come down to creating those spaces where you're feeling that vibe and that energy. And again, that connectivity to community. So to me, it is about creating this pedestrian realm. And we are no longer a 12-hour city. Madison is no longer a 12-hour city. We are a 24-hour city. We are growing our residential base. So what are those amenities that we bring not only to the people who work down here or visit down here, but to our residents down here? And to me, that's creating a really safe, well-connected pedestrian realm that is sustainable, that calms the world down for a little bit. And I think we've got some really great opportunities for us here in Milwaukee as well as Madison.
Other ideas in the panels? I mean, Tim, you've been throughout the world for your project. Ian, you've traveled throughout the world. Matt, other ideas from other cities that you would like to see happen in either Madison or Milwaukee?
I've been to Janesville. I don't know about traveling the world, but we get out around. I'd say there's going to be a bunch of ideas, but the first big idea, we have to be able to have our own destiny in our hands. If we don't pass a sales tax, cities in the state of Wisconsin won't be allowed to flourish. We can't pay for basic necessities right now, and our parks, our lawns, and I'd agree with that. We have to launch crowdfunding efforts. There's no reason we have to beg individuals for philanthropic dollars to put lights on a bridge or have a dog park downtown. Milwaukee doesn't have a dog park yet. It shouldn't be on Matt and Beth's shoulders to do that. That is basic planning. We shouldn't have to be doing playgrounds on our own dime. That's something we demand as citizens and should be able to create. So we have to really get a sales tax in play or something else so that we can control our own destiny, because there is a war on talent and Milwaukee is not well positioned right now. It is a race to cities. By 2050, half of the US, right now, half of the population lives in cities. By 2050, that's going to be 80%. which means they are going to be fleeing to the best cities. And if we don't put our flag in the ground and become the best cities, they are going to be going elsewhere. In this climate crap of, oh, it's too cold, no one wants to be there. Madison, you guys are doing great. You're growing in population. Minneapolis is doing great. There's some Midwest cities that are crushing it, Canadian cities that are crushing it. Climate is an excuse. I'm sick of the excuses. We have to get along politically and make some big, bold actions to make sure we can afford all these big ideas we have.
That was some strong statements from a gentleman in a Santa hat. I like that a lot, because we do need to be bold with being north, being, just take the cold. It's good. As Prince once said, my son from my hometown, Minneapolis, cold keeps the bad people away. So let's love that. Tim, Matt, any ideas of things that you've seen that we'd love to have happen here in the two cities?
I'm glad Santa also has a wish list. I think that Ian is right. I would go further than that, and other than the sales tax, I would say it would be nice for Milwaukee to get back what it gives to the state. We currently have a situation of inequitability, but in terms of big ideas, yes, Beth and I are very much on the same page. Whether you call it a den or a living room, whatever it is, but Milwaukee doesn't have great gathering spaces. The automatic like you have in Chicago or in Denver, where you're like, let's meet at whatever space outside, and we just don't have that. But more than that, it would also be great to, we talk about architecture a lot and how architecture should be of its place. Milwaukee has, as does Madison, we have these great histories and local cultures, and what an opportunity to both create gathering spaces and infuse that which makes us stand out against other cities instead of just copying what they have. For Milwaukee, for example, right away I think of water tech, but there's also an industrial past. And so I'm hoping that we really, for Milwaukee, it feels like the last 15 years has been this ascendance, but we're also trying to figure out, well, what are we now? We've emerged from this kind of post-industrial, okay, great. And now what are we? How do we compare ourselves against Cleveland, Denver, et cetera? And I think there's a real opportunity to tap into what makes Milwaukee special and leverage that through our public spaces.
And just, to close on that, I completely agree with everything that everyone was saying. Right now in downtown Milwaukee, basically, we have about 100 floors. 3 of the tallest residential buildings in the state of Wisconsin are essentially, they're coming out of the ground or about to start, if we think about the 32-story tower in the third ward. So pound for pound in the property line, I would say on a per capita basis, we're punching, with our peers. But it's about how do we look at that public how do we look at that public space, connecting those zones of activity. This weekend, I'm going to be in New York, actually, and taking in New York for the holiday season. And when I think about what's that space that's always on, so I can't wait. We're staying near Bryant Park. Bryant Park is one of those great spaces, and how do we do some version of that that's always on, something that is taking place, and we certainly, like everybody else has said, need some space like that. But I think it's leveraging those incredible investments that Tim and others are making, and really looking at how do we transform the connectivity between those zones of activity.
All right, we have 3 minutes left, so each of you have 30 seconds to answer this question. What is your dream for the future of downtown Milwaukee or downtown Madison? One of you has to answer for Madison because I'm the only Madisonian right now. But what is, in 30 seconds, I'm going to start with Beth. What is your dream for the future?
Oh God, my dream for the future. There's so many. I have Santa's wish list too. My dream for the future would be, and I think when we talked about climate and sustainability, I really do believe the Midwest is going to be a huge destination globally when you look at the impacts of what's happening environmentally. I do believe our water is our liquid gold. It never fails when I travel. There are always people who have a connection to Milwaukee, and it's always relative to our water. So I do believe, Milwaukee and Madison, we can be the fresh coast. We have accessibility to fresh water. Let's leverage that, but let's also protect it. Let's be that city where water water technology and research and development, this is where you're going to go if you have any affiliation with any association with fresh water at all, which we know is a resource that everybody in the world needs. So let's grow that. Let's use that as an economic engine and an economic tool, but let's also be thoughtful about it and protect our environment.
I love it. Ian, 30 seconds, future, what do you see?
I'll say two things. One, people move here without a plan. If you visit Austin, you are going to run into a barista with a master's degree that moved there, and the barista is the job until they find out. They just heard Austin was cool and they moved there. We have to start getting on that global scale. And two, I want to spend a weekend downtown with my kid, and I want a kid-safe environment. We have to start building for families, millennials, largest generation in the US history, having children, picking where to live. And I'm including dogs as kids. And if we don't start building the infrastructure to support families, we are not going to be on the list of where people want to be.
No, absolutely. An 880 city is the key, right? A city made for an 8-year-old or an 80-year-old works for everybody. All right, Matt, you're up.
How do we keep up with that? This reminds me of a question I have. Thanks for the reminder that I have from Mark Cass in my inbox that I have to respond to for some business journal thing. But I think I absolutely agree with Beth and Ian as well. I think, thinking about the future, it's really seizing the opportunity and getting out of our own way. As when I was at the recent International Downtown Association conference, folks, my colleagues from across the nation knew about the Milwaukee tool deal moving downtown. So many downtowns are envious of the opportunity. No one's moving 400,000 square feet into a downtown in the middle of the pandemic, knocking out a Class C building. That is a huge opportunity. It sends a ripple effect through the market. So really, it's about getting out of our own way, leveraging those opportunities, and really being bold and getting rid of what Jason said earlier, that Midwest sort of humbleness and leveraging the things that are right in front of us.
All right, Tim, last word.
Fun. Ian perfectly answered that aspect of it. To build on what Matt said, bold. Better politics, better political leaders. I'm tired of the last decade of mediocrity and playing it safe and trying to appease everyone. I miss the previous era of John Norquist when we had big, bold ideas and we would get input and we would build a coalition, but then we'd actually go do it. But I'll take the conversation in a different direction. I'll offer a chance for collaboration, not just Milwaukee and Madison, but across the state. We are building the world's tallest mass timber building. We have great engineering schools. We have great forestry programs. Why are we not marrying those to create a mass timber program? Michigan is doing it, a couple of other schools are doing it. We have the ability to be a leader in this space, and it ties into ESG. If people remember a year or so ago, maybe even less, BlackRock, one of the biggest investment management firms in the world, announced that ESG is going to be a priority. And I think that most people just don't understand how quick the tidal wave of sustainability is coming and how many people at all levels that manage vast sums of money are talking about the importance of sustainability. And the quicker that Madison and Wisconsin and the rest of the state can carve out a space to compete and to stand out against other cities and regions in the United States, the better.
Fantastic last word. Since I'm the moderator, I'll take the last word. I think we need to take the best of Milwaukee, the best of Madison, put them together and create this super region for the entire country, connecting to Chicago, connecting to Minneapolis. We are the arc of things in the future here in our country. All right. Thank you to Beth. Thank you to Ian, to Matt, and to Tim. We are so thankful for everyone here. And also thank you to our sponsors, Reinhardt and Bolt. We will see you again next year for 4 more Madison, Milwaukee downtown exchanges. Hopefully at some point we can run these live between the two cities. We've got big ideas ourselves for this forum. So thank you to all of you for joining us today. Thank you for all you do for both of our downtowns. Hope you have a wonderful holidays, and we will see you in 2022 with more big ideas.
Bucks and six. Bucks and six.
Bucks and six. Go Badgers. We'll say both. Bye, everyone.